Okay, we are now ready to conclude our Chapter 8 video lecture. We're on page 424, and we're going to make payments to 3 of our vendors. All right, so I'll go to my expenses tab, click on expenses, click on expenses. There we go. It's coming. I'll click on new transaction and I'll choose check. We're going to pay the 3 vendors on page 424, beginning with the Apple Store Inc. Check number should be 1082. We're going to pay the bill AS144 in the amount of $210. Okay, so that's all checked. So I'll click on Save and New to pay our next bill, which would be to the Clouds Channel Company. There we go. And we're paying on 130. We're going to pay invoice CZ155, which is here, for the $800. Make sure the invoice is checked, which it is. All right. So save and new. And we're now down to our final bill, a payment made to Computers to You. Again, payment date will be 130. Select the invoice 210 CTU in the amount of $1,500. That's our last payment. So let's go ahead and click on the Save and Close button. Okay. So that will conclude the transactions for Chapter 8. Let's run some reports and make sure that our figures are in balance. First, I want you to run a journal report for the month of January. Let's run a journal report. And our transaction day for the journal. Again, I like the classic view, so click this classic view for me. And the journal time period is going to be from 1/1 to 1/30. And you can then compare your journal transactions to what you see on pages 426 through 430. It's showing you all the various journal transactions you should have for the month of January. Let's go ahead and run a trial balance now. So again, go back to my reports, run a trial balance, and I'm going to run a trial balance from 1/1. I just put it in to 1/30. And let's run that report. And you can check your figures on page 430 to make sure they balance the figures on the page on your trial balance. I'm doing the same thing right now. And I see that for each of my columns, the amount should total $85,500.05. Okay. So one transparency moment, I see that my telephone expense, utility expense are not quite the same, meaning that when we did some original transactions in this chapter, I put something in utility expense that should have been telephone expense. So I'll go back and make that adjustment. It was for those transactions that we saw earlier where they just gave us the vendors. So they didn't really indicate which accounts to put into. So it's always good to check your figures and see if you have to make any adjustments before you start the homework. So I will make those adjustments. Okay. Next thing you see on page 431 is the account receivable agent report. And we want the summary, not the detail. And that report should be as of 01/30, not 21. And let's run that report. And then you can compare the account receivable showing the amount that's owed by our different customers. Compare that to what you see on page 431. There are some other reports. I'm going to run one more. Let's see. I'll do the profit and loss statement, which I know I'll have I should have the correct totals, but my expenses again, I think will be a little off because I'll make that adjustment. But let's do a profit and loss statement. And again, yes, you can use the little toolbar, or you can also type in the actual dates. Let's run that report. So the profit and loss statement, well, if I put the right data in, let me click on run report. That definitely wasn't it. Okay, that looks a lot better. So now my profit and loss statement does show total sales 8610, gross profit 4305, net income of 354602. But again, I do have to make the adjustment between my telephone expense, utility expense, because I put something in utility expense that should have been telephone expense. But I will make that adjustment. Okay? So now that you've made sure that all your totals are in balance, you are ready now to complete your Chapter 8 homework, which begins on page 437 with exercise 8-1 and continues through page 440. You'll then complete, that'll be done using QuickBooks. You'll then complete exercise 8-3 utilizing the Connect software. Okay? So we're going to come back and then we still do chapter 9. And in chapter 9, we're going to do some of the same type of transactions, but this time for the month of February. Okay? So again, hopefully by now you're getting pretty acclimated to how to use QuickBooks to do a variety of business transactions. Until later, see ya.